I was in the fitness industry for 15 years.
Okay.
But when I opened up the doors in my own facility, I had 23 clients when I opened the doors in my own facility.
It's a good number.
But in 2016,
Yes.
11 years later, I decided to walk away from it all, and I built it from 23 clients to over 350 clients and a staff of 14 when I walked away. But it almost drove me in the ground.
Okay.
It almost killed me.
Okay.
Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. My kids were 5 and 8 at the time.
Yes.
So closer to the age of your kids.
Yes.
And I realized that I was spending no time with my kids or my wife.
Right.
Because I was working. I was in the gym every morning from 4:45 a.m. until about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night.
Yes.
Monday through Friday. Saturdays, I was doing half days, which, 6 in the morning until 3. And then still, by the time I got home on Saturday afternoon,
Right.
and Sundays, I was so exhausted that I was just like, I just wanted to veg out, right?
Yeah.
So mentally wasn't there
Yeah.
for my family.
Yeah.
And so it just got close to causing me my marriage.
Yeah.
Right. And I just wasn't able to give to my family what they needed.
Right.
So something had to change.
Yeah.
Right. So I literally got to the point where like I couldn't take it anymore. And I gave my staff and my clients 30 days.
Are you a hardworking dad, juggling family responsibilities while dreaming of building wealth through real estate? Welcome to the Invested Fathers Podcast, where we explore how to balance investing and fatherhood. I'm your host, Kenny Johnson, founder of East West Capital. Over the past 5 years, I've been buying real estate to free up my time and secure my family's future. Now I'm here to help you do the same. Join me as we navigate the real estate world together, building wealth and strengthening our families. As my grandma always said, East West, home's best.
I said that's about all I got left in me.
Mm-hmm.
It helped my team find other jobs if they wanted other jobs. I actually gave clients to my team members, so made sure my clients had an option to go train somewhere else. Fortunately enough, I was at the point where I built that membership model, right? So I only had 5 clients at the time that were on a pay in full. And all of their paid in full memberships were coming up for renewal at the end of that month.
Okay.
So it was like,
if it ain't that, it's a good time.
Yeah, it was where it was like, God lined it up perfectly where I could literally walk away.
Okay.
A lot of people ask me, why didn't I sell it? Why didn't I do this? And that's like, to go through a sales process of a business that size would take 9 months to a year. And then to find the right buyer.
Right.
And then another thing was, it was my identity at the time.
Yeah.
I had built that from the ground up. So that
23.
company the name was attached to me.
Yes.
And I still to this day get people come to me and say, hey, how's Q? Say, how's the gym going?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Okay.
But the fact of being able to sell that to somebody or even give it to my team, and then, if they were to run it into the ground or something bad would have happened, they'll still be associated with my name. So I just couldn't do that. But yeah, that was the decision. I had to get away from that. And then within 2 years is where I found real estate.
Okay.
So I think is one of the best decisions I ever made.
Yes.
But getting into the real estate game, there's a couple things that I learned from the fitness business and just business in general that I knew I wanted to start this company, the company I currently own, a lot differently. Right. And the biggest thing on that was put my family first. Right.
Yes.
And so myself first and then my family, because believe it or not, people are like, oh, you own the gym, you should be in tip-top shape.
Right.
I was in the worst shape I've ever been in owning the gym because the stress, and I always took care of everybody else first.
Right.
And left myself last. And then last thing I wanted to do at the end of the day was spend another hour in the gym working out. Right. So when I started this company, I was like, family comes first, and I won't let business get in the way of family. And the biggest thing on that is like, I'm not willing to do anything after hours. So a lot of times people are like, I don't ever see you at the meetups. I'm like, because most of them are in the evening.
Yes.
That's family time.
Yes.
Or on the weekend. I don't do things on the weekend. So that's designated for my family. So putting those things first, and then financially making sure that my family's taken care of first. Right. So implementing the profit first model in business. So always making sure that we're profitable, making that profit, the money is coming to me first, or me as in my family, and into my personal bank account, to take care of my family, because if things get at home, things will be good at work, right? But those are two things that I really wanted to implement in this company to make sure that family came first.
Yes.
And my kids are 5 and 8 at the time, like I mentioned.
Yes.
Prime developmental time.
Yes.
That I needed to be involved, and I wasn't. So now, those kids are 16 and 13 now.
Yes.
But I spend more time with them, and I've spent more time with them over the last 6-7 years than I ever did in the first 5 to 8 years of their life. So that's been a significant change.
Vaughn, you've got me salivating here, and I'm open sponge to everything you're going towards. So thank you for sharing that beginning. I got a lot to unpack in just what you said. If you don't mind, let me start with sort of earlier, Vaughn. Maybe even the household, but I just feel like, you mentioned taking care of everyone else first.
Yep.
I feel like I'm that way as well. There's a sense of like, is everyone comfortable? Is everyone, okay?
Just men in general.
Yeah. You're looking around, and I think that's a great quality. That's a strong quality. Can also be a detriment sometimes if you're putting yourself like you said, like you weren't working out, but you were making sure everyone else was taken care of. So maybe give me some, is that just how you always been? Was that modeled to you?
So looking at personality tests and behavioral tests and things such as that, I love people, right? And one of the things that we use in our company is the culture index.
Okay.
And you might have heard like predictive index and things such as that. There's different, like character tests that people can do. And in the culture index, I'm what's called a 4-dot people person, right? Okay. So everything, for me is built towards people. Right. I like to win with people. I'm not like going to run everybody over and to get my stuff. I want to win with people. Right. I want to bring people with me. I'm a social person. I like to be around people. I'm very patient, which you have to be a people person to be patient. And my detail is extremely low, which is crazy because, I like to focus on people.
No, I'm the same way.
Right? So I'm driven by people. And because of that, I'm just wired to try to take care of everybody else and make sure everybody else is taken care of before myself. But one of the things I've learned over especially the last 10 years is that, and my coach told me this, it's probably 15 years ago, and it's really, over the last 5 years, has really become strong to where it just stays in my mind. He goes, when you get better, everything gets better. And what I mean by that is you need to take care of yourself first. And when people say that, they think you're going to be selfish, but it's not being selfish, right? Because think about the analogy of the plane. When the oxygen mask drop, what do they tell you to do?
Put it on first.
Put your mask on first.
Yeah.
Why do they tell you to do that? Because if you pass out, who's going to take care of the people that are relevant, right?
Exactly.
So the same thing comes to us as fathers and as men. If we're married and we have kids, like we have to be at prime, right? And peak performance as much as we possibly can. Because when we're at peak performance and high energy levels and we're thinking clearly, then we can give back to our family the most, right? But in order to do that, we got to take care of ourselves, right? And take care of ourselves physically, working out, staying healthy, having energy, getting good amounts of sleep, things such as that, right? But also spiritually, emotionally, when we're taking care of ourselves that way as well, we can then pour into our family, pour into our kids, and help them develop with your kids, the age that they are now, say 3 and 8, or prime developmental ages, right? So you being available and being able to pour into them spiritually, mentally, emotionally, but also physically through your energy levels and being there for them, it's going to help them throughout that developmental process.
Okay. I feel like what I'm personally most interested in, the values you've instilled in the kid, like you're talking about the developmental stage. You said it a couple of times now.
Yep.
So I'm like, I'm in that time. Like I don't want to mess up, like I want to learn things, right? And you mentioned a coach as well. What are some things, I don't want to say like the number one thing, but what are some maybe a few things that you've learned since, the turning point of your life, the breaking point, where you shut down the gym, to now, it's almost like a new Vaughn has been maybe reborn here.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some things that were maybe just aha moments or things specifically, and just being the dad you've already mentioned the health, but just like being the dad that you've really strived to be for?
Well, I think the biggest thing that came out of that period is when I got out of the fitness industry. This is in August of 2016, right? And I had been in the fitness industry since 2001, 2002, 2003. And everything that was built over the course of those years, you're talking about almost 15 years there, right?
Yeah.
I associated myself with fitness and soccer.
Okay.
Soccer because that was my sports background. I came to Furman University, came to Greenville, South Carolina to play soccer.
Yeah.
Right. I majored in health and exercise science at Furman University, which got me into the fitness industry.
Sure.
Right. So everybody knew Vaughn as the soccer guy or the fitness guy. Right. And that's how I knew myself.
Sure.
Right. But when I walked away from the fitness industry, that's gone. I've had arthritis in both my ankles since I was 17 years old. I played for the Bahamas national team. I played up until 2008 is when I retired because my daughter was born. I can't physically go out and play soccer right now because of my ankles, right? So I'm not playing soccer. I wasn't playing soccer at the time. So here I am, 2016, August, September 2016. I don't have the fitness industry anymore, and I don't have soccer. So who am I?
It was on, yeah.
Right? So I was stuck like, I didn't even know my own identity. I didn't know who Vaughn was.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was going to do next,
Yeah.
right? Because everybody knew me as a soccer and fitness guy. I knew myself as a soccer and fitness guy.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out who I was.
Yeah.
Right? Who I was as a person before I can even, start to grow or start to even consider what was next. And that was a journey. It took me probably a good year to 2 years to figure that out, and had to realize that Vaughn was an individual and a child of God and not defined by what he's doing. Right. But what impact can I have and will I have in my family and in the world and the community beyond what it is that I do? Right. As far as the career or the tag that I have associated with me, business owner, real estate investor, or whatever it may be.
Right.
And there's a couple of things that weren't going to change and never going to change is being a father.
Yeah.
Right. Son, brother.
Yeah.
Right. And a husband.
Yeah.
And how can I maximize those things?
Yeah.
Right. So even now, a lot of what I do, and you mentioned earlier, like I mentioned, have a coaches. And I have a couple coaches, multiple different coaches now, but, the majority of in the first 15 years of my career was business coaches, coaches that are going to help move me along in business. Now my coaches are personal and developmental coaches that help me make sure I'm the best version, the best man, the best father, the best husband that I can be. So that's been a huge shift.
Okay.
And making sure that I keep those things first and that I'm not yes, my title is real estate investor. That just happens to be the industry that I'm in, but that's not who I am. Right.
Yeah.
As a person.
Yeah.
So
give me some more of the, where did you turn? Like, you've mentioned your faith a couple of times.
Yeah.
Your wife is there, your kids are there. You're at this like identity crisis. Did God just like, hey, this is who I am, like wake up?
Yeah.
Like a Paul sort of moment, or
it wasn't like that. I've been very fortunate. I was brought up in a strong Christian family.
Okay.
My parents, we went to church every Sunday. On Wednesday, it's one of those things where, I remember my parents battling because being a soccer player and playing high level soccer and competitive soccer, a lot of stuff happens on the weekends.
Yes.
Specifically on Sundays. And it's like, all right, well, because your games are starting to, conflict with church.
That's a big deal.
And so, I remember it was a big thing between my dad and my mom. It was like, all right, are you going to let him play, or is he going to have to sit out and have to go tell the coach that he can't play on Sundays and stuff like that? So I've been very fortunate and was very blessed to be brought up in a strong Christian family. That was what was instilled in me, right? And we talk about that developmental phase. They say who we are and our characteristics, our personalities are defined by the age of 10 to 12, right? And what is instilled in us through that time, whether it's environmental or, what's been taught to us and things like that, determines who we are inherently, right? By the age of 10 to 12. So that I was very blessed to have that influence in my life up until that age. But also, that's what determines our characteristics and who we are, but we got to continue to run with that. Right. And having a strong, family background and resource system, being my parents, throughout the entire time. Now, going to college, there's a lot of times there's a time where I backslid and fell off the wagon for a while. But fortunately enough, because of that history and background, I very quickly come back. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm very, strong in my faith, and people always like to call me the preacher or whatever. When I'm the one that are like, all right, we need somebody to bless the food, or we need somebody to pray. It's like,
Where's Vaughn?
He's not. But that's a huge foundation of who I am.
Yeah.
Right. And you heard me mention earlier, a child of God is first and foremost.
Yeah.
Right. And in that hierarchy of being a husband and a parent, God always comes first. Right. So it's God, then family. Right. And we got to put God first in everything that we do. And just learning to continue to put him first really gives me a clearer, right? And it's never,
right.
To me, I never feel like it's 100% clear. This is
right.
what you're telling me to do, but gives me a clear pathway of what I should do or what I feel God, wants me to do. So,
dude, that's so encouraging to hear that, Vaughn. And I don't know. I think what starting this podcast, figuring out who am I bringing on, and we're talking business and fatherhood, but the faith element has actually been something that's been somewhat recently odd for me, is not making that a like sub point of the show. Not that it's necessarily like the number one point, but knowing sometimes I equate Christian faith as like, oh, you're gonna be poor. Or just like, you're not going to be as successful as successful. I know that's the key. Is like, what is success defined?
Yeah, that's what it is
when you think that way.
Yeah.
But just recently, I went to a funeral yesterday. A friend of my wife passed away, and she was like 35 years old. And you kind of see these messages of like, what matters? Like, the light of eternity, that kind of stuff. And when when we're in those grinding years, you mentioned having the business coach first, but then these other coaches kind of came later. I feel like that's very normal and common. Yeah. So maybe if you could give me some of the number one, like what kind of coach, you mentioned like a few of the coaches, how many coaches do you have?
Yeah.
And maybe some advice for, me or other people that maybe have a business coach, but are looking at sort of the next level up from where you experienced adding those coaches.
Yeah. So it didn't hit me till for a while. Right. But having a coach has been a huge, like, molding point of who I am throughout my entire life. Right. Because I've always played sports.
Yeah.
Right? So I've always had a coach.
Yeah.
Right. Whether that coach was my dad starting out to having other coaches. And, just I look at over time and over the years, how much those coaches have influenced me as a person. Right. And it's crazy because my soccer coach at Furman, the guy that recruited me, brought me from Florida to Greenville, South Carolina, which I never even heard of when I was in Florida, right? 17 years old, 16, 17 years old when we first met. He's still a coach at Furman.
Okay.
And we're really good friends now. Okay. And he was a coach. He was my coach, right? And I say really good friends. It's not like, hey, Coach Allison, it's good to see you. Yeah. Like my wife and him and his wife, we went to Iceland together a couple of years ago for vacation.
Yeah.
Like just the two of us, two couples, and that's how close of friends we are.
Yeah.
So when you look at how much of an impact coaches can have on you as a person, then you start looking at it from that aspect, and then you look at business coaches. So I didn't find business coaching. Yeah, I've had coaches there my whole life, but I didn't realize business coaching was a thing until 2008. Okay. 3 years into my fitness business. Okay. Right. But what I found out, business coaching is typically designed to, and how it should be, and how I approached it, is to buy speed. Right. So if I'm going to hire a business coach, I'm going to hire somebody that's either where I want to be or been through what I want to go through, or I'm going to go through, or, it's going to go through what I've, want to go through, or I've been through. But somebody that can speed me up through the process, right? So somebody that's going to help prevent me from making mistakes, or be able to provide me tools and resources that I don't have to create on my own to speed up the process, right? If they have, tools, resources, and systems and processes that work, why reinvent the wheel? Exactly. Right? Get it from there. So I look at business coaching as somebody that's going to speed up the process of where you are now to where you want to be, and they've done it, right? And they have the systems, tools, resources, and the coaching to get you there faster than if you did it on your own, right? But beyond that, and I've had, whether I was in the fitness business or the real estate business or whatever it may be, I've had coaches and multiple different coaches, because some coaches, I always say, another coach of mine told me years ago, it's like, sometimes the people that got you to where you are aren't necessarily the people that are going to get you to where you want to be. Right. So you can outgrow employees, you can outgrow coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to always find that coach is going to get you and speed you up to get you to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
So having one coach and they get you to one level, that might be just the capacity of that they have,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's not anything against them, but you have to move on and go find the next coach.
Mm-hmm.
So from a business standpoint, I've always, just moved on to coaches that are going to help accelerate business.
Mm-hmm.
But from a personal development standpoint, it's the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So where you're at in life, and we're all go through different seasons of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I went looking for a coach that is an expert in a season of life that I'm not in or haven't never gone through,
Mm-hmm.
that coach is not going to have an impact on me.
Mm-hmm.
And probably not going to be able to provide me much.
Mm-hmm.
So it's finding the coach that whatever season of life that you're in, where you need the most guidance and support. So finding a coach or a mentorship or a group of people. Right now I'm part of a brotherhood. Like, I don't like to call it mastermind. Everybody likes to call it a mastermind, but it's a group of guys, and we call it a brotherhood. Just simplifies brotherhood, that we're all high-level entrepreneurs and business owners and real estate investing or other businesses. But we're at a position right now where we've grown massive businesses and realized that that's not where we want to be. Like, it takes away, those things start to take away from what we really find important in our lives today, which is more time freedom, right? And to spend time with our families, and then financial freedom to spend time with our families, right? So we're at a point of simplifying businesses and simplifying our life to really focus on what's important. And if it doesn't move us closer to that simplification process or move us closer to where we want to be and how we want to live our life, then, we need to make a decision on, is it still applicable in my business or still what I want to pursue or what I want to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard of Mike Michalowicz, The Offer of Profit First.
Yes. Okay. I didn't know.
Clockwork.
Yep.
And,
Okay.
Yeah. What is it? The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur.
Okay.
So I read Profit First years and years and years ago, 15 years ago. But I read Clockwork for the first time last year. And one of the things that really stood out to me in that book is redefining our definition of scale. Right? And so as entrepreneurs, business owners, when we think of scale, what do we think of? You mentioned it earlier. When I bought 10 houses.
That's what scaling looked like.
Yeah.
Right.
More houses, more people,
right?
More problems.
A lot more problems.
A lot more problems, right? So in that book, he talks about how years and years ago, he redefined his definition of scale to be more efficient and more profitable. And when he coaches a lot of entrepreneurs now and they take on that definition of scale, they end up scaling down. Right? So I look at my business now than where it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago, at a point I had 29 employees.
Okay.
Now I'm at 9.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
But I'm a lot happier, a lot less stress.
Yes.
More profitable.
Yes.
Right? And more efficient.
Yes.
Because 29 people, when you're a people lover,
yes,
that pressure that comes on you of having to make sure you're taking care of everybody.
Yes.
And everybody's happy.
Yes.
And everybody's fed.
Right. It's a lot.
That's a huge weight.
Yeah.
So
you don't want to fall into that trap of what you came out of with the business, other business.
Exactly.
Shoot, man. It's like I'm like so enraptured and everything. I'm like, oh, okay. We're talking a lot about the coaching and mentorship. I mean, that's kind of been a theme. And you mentioned, you did talk about scaling, definition of scale.
Yeah.
But maybe let's put that into if you don't mind, like the fatherhood side of life. Because you've given a lot about the personal business, and not that like we need to know everything you're doing with your kids, but like there's just this theme that I love exploring. There's a book called The Intentional Father. I don't know if you read that book. John Tyson. He's like an Australian preacher. Love the book. Did some like kind of reviews of the chapters on the show, but there was this light bulb moment again for me, it was the difference between an involved father versus an intentional father. So I feel like I was the involved father, at the games, making breakfast, sitting there drawing with them. But there wasn't the next level was like intentional. So like there's a plan here. There's a goal. There's a, process to like manhood that was like, oh, okay, there's a whole nother That's the best thing.
Yeah.
So, have you explored that? Have you kind of gone into like, I don't know, like maybe like fatherhood coaching, but is there any things that you've said, this is something that I committed to and we're doing this that you can share?
So I'm glad you asked that question because that is something that over the last probably 6 to 9 months that I've really become more cognizant of.
Okay.
Right. So I never heard it put that way as far as the involved father versus the intentional father, but I like that. Right. Because I've been focused more on being involved.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Be there for all the games
Yeah.
and all the band recitals and, all this stuff. Right. And I always want to be there.
Right.
But there's a difference between just being there and then being intentional. Right. And so working with this group and my recent coach that runs the Simplifiers Brotherhood, we've started talking more about, and it's funny because with this brotherhood or mastermind, right? Everything I've been a part of before is all focused on business. We very rarely talk about business. That's just kind of like sidebar conversations. But when we get together, it's more focused on, relationships and personal development, hard, like, taking care of ourselves and, making sure that we're in a good place. And then very rarely is that going into the specifics of running a business or, stuff like that. But one of the things that, when I first started with my coach and he asked me what things that I wanted to do, and I said, I want to improve the relationships with my kids and my wife. One of the things that we started doing is started talking about being more intentional, right? What are things that we can put in place that are part of our everyday life or things that we want to accomplish, we want to do that we can involve our kids, right? So I remember like one of the things is like, all right, fitness, getting in better shape, getting healthier. And like my daughter's all into, eating right. And, she has allergies. She's allergic to dairy and eggs.
Okay.
So
I have a son who's also allergic to dairy.
Yeah. So there's, when you thought I know dairy, like, dude,
you are preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot.
I was big into that. And I was like, well, I'm trying to get my sexy back, right?
You on the boat.
Exactly. So one of the things that ideas we came up with was like meal prepping, right?
Yeah.
So for the last easily 6-7 months, every Sunday, me and my daughter meal prep. She's at the grocery store. She was at the grocery store when I was on the way here, and she's like, I asked him, should I get 2 things of chicken? And I was like, so she goes to the grocery store, she shops, and every Sunday afternoon, heat the Blackstone up. Out there meal prep,
that.
So that was something that's being intentional, not just, hey, let's find things that we're both interested in and can do together, but it's also spending time together. So every Sunday is like, she knows, like, all right, you ready to let me know when you're ready.
Yeah.
And the same thing with my son is 13 years old, and boy, he's trying to get to puberty as fast as he can. He's like trying to bring it off
as long as I can
until I want him hold off, but his mind, he's like, I'm 13, I'm 7th grade. All these kids are hitting puberty. When am I going to hit puberty?
Yeah.
So he's asking about working out and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, well, I'm part of that health journey as well. Like, I have a full gym in my basement. One of the benefits of shutting down a fitness facility. So teaching him how to lift and work out with him and stuff like that. So. Implementing those things.
Yeah.
And those are 2 things that are just very, intentional, but, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right? Things that are interesting to them or that they're all about, and things that I want to accomplish as well and that I'm all about. And then, probably about 3 years ago, and one of the other masterminds that I'm part of, this 7-figure flipping mastermind, we get into a lot about personal development and relationships and things that's there as well. But it was like dating your wife. Right. And me and my wife are celebrating 20 years this year.
Congrats, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. But it's so easy to just get caught up in the daily routines that if you're not dating your wife, right, then things can start to slip away. So it's being intentional about that. So about 3 years ago, setting a standard weekly date night.
Okay.
Right. And just being intentional about it.
Yeah.
So that has significantly made changes and improvements in our relationship and our marriage.
Yeah.
So I love that of being intentional. I would say, probably for me right now is like, it probably used to be probably 90 to 95% involved rather than intentional.
Gotta go with the flow.
And it's shifted, and I would probably say it's still probably 70 to 30%, but it's moving in, more in the direction of intentional.
Yeah.
With my relationships.
No, that's encouraging to hear. And I would think a lot of fathers out there, I don't know when you start thinking that way of like being intentional. That's kind of one of the goals of the show is, hey, let's let's put some effort into this planning.
Yeah.
All the work you've done planning a business, you know, I actually really found it interesting that like this maybe elite mastermind group, the Brotherhood, isn't even talking about business. We're just talking about the other things, and how that to me sends that message of like, hey, even if you are this multimillionaire successful business guru, what I really want to talk about is, and there's still maybe a time for that in different places, but it's encouraging here you have a select focused group on the non-business, like self development and intentional fatherhood type of side of things.
Yeah. And it's crazy because that same group of men, they all significantly help in business.
There you go.
Because of the experience.
Yeah.
Right. But the group is not focused on business. It's not about business. Right. It's about getting deeper than that.
Yeah.
And it all keeps going back to that comment. And I'll probably say it's probably 15, 16 years ago. One of my first coaches told me, he's like, when you get better, everything gets better. Right. It's just depending on what is that what part of you are you focused on? So at that time, I was in the fitness business. So it was like taking care of yourself physically. Right. Because when you take care of yourself physically, you're sharper mentally, you got more energy, you know, all these things, right? And that allows you to show up and be there and have more energy, and be more present with your family, or whoever it is that you're willing to spend time with.
Right.
But now it's like, okay, well, I can be fit, I can have a great business, but mentally, emotionally, and psychologically, if I'm not right or I'm not peaking, like if I can get this right, then it's still gonna make everything else better, right?
Yeah.
So when you get better, everything gets better.
I love that quote, man. Glad you said it again. I always like to throw this out there. What's the best part about being a dad right now? So maybe like a story or something that, you know, for me, there's like my daughter, you know, whispers, I love you at night, and she's 3, and there's just kind of this like, doesn't matter what else happened today. Like there's like something happened maybe that you can share with us. Yeah. Could be recent, could be long ago, but that just best part about being a dad.
The best part about being a dad is like just the emotional part of it, dude. And I think as men, it's like a lot of men are reluctant and scared to share their emotions. But as humans, there's one major thing that we want in this world is to be loved, right? And to have somebody that has unconditional love to you, right? And it's funny because as you get older, you're like, I look at my mom, my dad, and there's like, I can't think of a more powerful love I have for somebody than my mom or dad, right? Then when you're in the teenage years and stuff like that, you're like, yeah, I hate mom, I hate dad, right? But like even with like my son right now, his age, and it's like that 13, prepubescent, like trying to get to puberty as fast as possible. But he still looks up to me and like idolizes me, right? And one of the things that I mentioned in my brotherhood is like, I want to be the person that my son thinks I am, right? And when you see that, how they envision you, to be able to see that unconditional love, almost like a hero, right? To have that from kids. Like one of the things that me and my kids have always done, and intentionally did this from the time that they were born, was always telling them I love them, right? And a lot of that stemmed from my dad didn't tell us he loved us, like when we were growing up at all. Very rarely heard it. And it wasn't because he didn't. That's just not how he was raised. Like he's the oldest of 10 brothers and sisters. Like he was the hard butt that was gonna be, my uncles used to tell me like, hey, like if we ever needed something taken care of, like we would go get your dad, right? Which I can't even envision that now because, like I said, grew up in a strong Christian home, never heard him cuss, never seen him drink, all this stuff. But that's how he was raised, and that's how he was brought up. So he was brought up in a home where he was the person because the dad wasn't. He has 8 half brothers and sisters, or 2 full biological brother and sister. One of them is passed now, but they had 2 different daddies throughout their home, but neither one of the daddies. Same mother, neither one of the daddies were ever present. Right? Yeah. So it was that was
what was modeled to him.
Yeah.
So now he's got you. So he's trying to change things. Just that.
And it wasn't until I got out of the house.
Yeah.
Really in college and living my own life that I really he's like, I love you. And like, now it's the thing that we get on the phone and we don't even get off the phone without telling each other to love them. That's just a progression that has happened over the years. So because of that lack of hearing I love you growing up, and how it always stuck in my head, And it was a big deal for me. I've always made it intentionally about saying I love you to my kids. So like every time we get off the phone, every time we get out, they go somewhere, we leave to go to, my son gets out the car when I drop him off at school or whatever.
Yeah.
We leave each other. It's like, I love you.
Yeah.
And so it's just become a thing in our house that, I wanted to be intentional about implementing, and never want my kids to ever think that I don't love them and that I'm not proud of them. Right. So, and that was another thing with my dad. It's like, being proud of you, like, proud of you, right?
Right.
It's time I can remember distinctively him telling me he was proud of me was, I had a major, like it was in college, and I had I can't remember exactly what it was, but like winning player at a tournament or something like that, or something. And I was like, and at this point, I was still young, I was in the college years, right? So I was stubborn, but I was like, so you proud of me? And he goes, I'll be proud of you. And that is just kind of how it came out. He's like, I'll be proud of you when you graduate. Right. And not that he wasn't proud of me, but he was like, his thing is like, my biggest thing is I want you to graduate college.
Yeah.
Right. So finally I walked across the stage at graduation, got done, went and found my parents. And I was like, I say, so are you finally proud of me? And he goes, what are you talking about? He's like, I've always been proud of you. I'll always be proud of you. And he goes, I said, well, he told me, he didn't even remember, right? It is one of those things.
You remembered it.
I remember though, because I remember that, like how hard it hit me.
Yes.
So things like that with my kids now, I'm like, I don't ever want them to think I don't love them or I'm not proud of them. So it's just one of those things that I always say, anytime they do something, I'm like, hey, I'm proud of you.
No, I love the, I don't want to call it vulnerability, but the idea of being relational, and talking about our feelings, there's just a sense of, as men, we have to model how to do that in our household. So if we're bad at it, our kids are going to be bad at it. It's going to keep going. And when you can, say, hey, in a way, the picture of your dad not saying he was proud of you at that moment on the soccer, was a big moment in your life, I think. Yeah. It was just like, oh shoot, like I wanted this, so Dad, you proud of me? Like you even saying that probably was a lot to put that out there.
Yeah.
And
that's one of the things that, especially as a young man with your dad, is you want your dad to be proud of you. Yeah. Like my son, I could see it. And I can see it now because of what I went through. And it's like, no, and they're like, and even my wife can see it strong. He's like, he just wants you to be proud of him. Yeah. And so like, just being able to tell that to him, I can completely change his mood or how he reacts to something just by telling him how proud I am of him. Yeah. And that very particular recent thing that happened is he got a bad haircut. Okay. Right. And it wasn't a bad haircut, but the guy didn't do what he wanted it to do. Okay. Like he had this moppy curly hair and he wanted this whole moppy look, and the guy cut off too much, more than he wanted in the front. Okay. Right. And I could see, like, as soon as he cut it off in his hair, his eyes just started watering. And I'm looking at him, I'm just saying, it's okay. It's okay. And then, after the guy cut it, and it was actually a good looking haircut, but not what he wanted. Okay. So I could tell he was just like devastated, right? Like see it in his face. I get in the car and he's about to break down. And I said, hey, listen, I just want to tell you something. I said, I know that's not the haircut you wanted, but I'm super proud of how you handled it. And you didn't break down in there in front of those men. And I said, actually, the haircut looks really good. And I said, but I know that's not what you wanted. And I said, but I want to let you know that I'm proud of you and how you handle yourself. I said, because things will come at you in life that you don't want and don't expect. And it's all about how you handle it. Guess what? He went home and he was like to his mom and his sister. And he was like, he's like, that's not what I wanted, but and I was telling it's like, he didn't even say that though. He was like, and I told him, I'll text my wife. I said, because while he's in the chair, I was like, he is be ready. And I was like, be ready. I said, when you get home, just tell him how good his haircut looks. And guess what? I love it. He loves it now. He gets the same haircut every time. But it was just like, I could tell like it was going to go one way or the other when we got in the car. So just being able to tell him how proud I was of him, the way he handled everything, changed his whole demeanor and outlook on that entire situation.
I love that story, Vaughn.
But it was one of those things that I knew, like, I had to tell him, like, you ain't gonna always get what you want, right?
Exactly.
Can't always, was that song?
Can't always get Blast eyes.
I said, things are going to happen in your life that you don't want to happen, or you're unexpected, or they go, not how you wanted it to go.
Right.
But it's how you react to it.
Exactly.
And so I think it was a lesson that he learned that day, and I think he remembered it.
Well, Vaughn, if you haven't been encouraged recently as a dad, that's a great story. That's a great use of teaching a life lesson amidst something that's just like a haircut, just another haircut.
Oh, yeah.
But I would like to think he's going to remember that, at least that first haircut. Well, Vaughn, to kind of wrap things up a little bit, I want to be able to promote what you're doing with the podcast you've mentioned, your own podcast that you're putting out. Give us a little teaser, or give our audience what you're doing there, if they want to follow that, and your mission there.
Yeah. And
then also, if our audience just wants to keep up with where you're at and what you're doing, best way for them to track you.
Yeah. So the podcast is the Flip Your Life podcast. And been doing it for a little while now, and just kind of sporadically. But one of the things that really, kind of sits in my heart is, being able to, because through our company, through REI Junkies, right? And you mentioned earlier, like REI Junkies, that's an interesting name. And when I created the name for that company, one of the things is like, when you think of junkies and how I was raised and how most people think is like, is an addict, right?
Yeah, right.
Drug addict or whatever,
Right.
alcohol addiction, whatever. Well, I was like, I'm at a point where I'm addicted to real estate.
Okay.
So REI, real estate investing, junkies.
Yeah.
So our tagline is addicted to real estate. But yeah, one of the things that for me, before I got into real estate, and even, I had a successful business before that, it didn't provide me the time freedom or the financial freedom that real estate provides me now, right? So the pun was intended, like in flipping, right? I was able to get into real estate, start flipping paper, flipping houses. Now we do primarily owner financing and providing a pathway to home ownership. But through real estate, I literally was able to flip my life, right? From somebody that didn't have a lot of extra cash or didn't have, a lot of extra passive income or a lot of extra time, to somebody that, like, I work a lot less than I did before, and I have more financial, resources and more time with my family. So I completely flipped my life from where it was to where it is now. And so I want to highlight other business owners throughout the community that have been able to do the same thing for themselves, but also for their families and for the community. So that's the whole purpose of the Flip Your Life podcast.
Cool. I'm looking forward to tuning into that.
And just encourage other people that it's possible, right? Because a lot of people think we get so caught up in where we are now that we can't even see like where it could be, right? And with the potential that we have. And we can make a complete 180-degree turn. If we think we're in a bad place or we're not happy with where we are now, literally can be make a complete 180-degree turn and be somewhere completely different a year from now. So just highlighting people that have done that, and let them share their stories, and encourage other people.
I think that's beautifully said. I think it starts with the mindset, like you just said. It's
100%.
It's what you're thinking. 100%. So if you're trapped in your mind, if you're trapped in just I got to pay these bills, or I'm overwhelmed here, you're probably gonna stay trapped.
Yeah.
If you're thinking, you know what, there's a way out of this. This guy knows, or this book has some help here, or you got to change that mindset. Yeah. Go for it.
It's belief systems, awesome. Man.
Yeah, dude.
Belief systems. Like, what's the saying? What you believe you can achieve, right? It goes the opposite way too, right? Exactly. We all have limiting beliefs. Everybody has limiting beliefs, and those are belief systems that we have that limit our potential because we don't believe that we can do it, right? Or we don't believe it's possible. And when you get rid of those limiting beliefs, it's amazing what you can actually do, right? The brain's a powerful thing. Yeah, man. It can be a huge driver, right? And it can drive you to do the things necessary to get to where you want to be. So,
Vaughn, thanks so much for your time today on the Invested Fathers. For all my dads out there, invest wisely.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Invested Fathers podcast. If you liked this episode, we would love for you to click subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate all of your hard work as a father and look forward to our next episode together.